Okay, no. All right, so we are on unit 4, which I think would go a little faster because we already know the concepts of reading and what it entails to prepare postgraduate students for reading. Now we're looking at preparing, because remember, this is all literacy skills that the student should have as a researcher, right? And you as a supervisor need to guide them on these literacy skills. So guiding your student on writing a research proposal. So this is now they've done all the reading, they've gathered all the information, they've probably organized all the information in the various ways we just discussed in unit 3. And we're now getting down to actually writing the argument, writing our story. So the proposal is the first threshold that we have to go through. And since we are all sitting here as academics today, as supervisors or potential supervisors, also having been students at some point in time, we know that the first threshold that we have to go through is the proposal writing. Essentially, that proposal then develops into your chapter 1, and it forms the foundation of your entire research. That is why you need a proper roadmap. Although there are a number of university websites, books, and other guides to write a research proposal, there are surprisingly few articles that focus on dilemmas involved in proposal writing and the contradictions inherent in the genre. What makes research proposal writing particularly complex is the dual and conflicting roles it carries as both a gatekeeper and to provide formative pedagogical tools, roles that led Cadman to describe the proposal as a contested site in postgraduate genre pedagogy. So, this is where we also discuss the difference between pedagogy and andragogy, right? And I think also at these levels where you are a postgraduate learner, you at honors level, master's level, doctoral level, um, the maturity levels also vary, right? And it changes as your academic or research journey progresses. This is where I like to bring in, and a lot of research doesn't touch on this, is the andragogical approach, which is how to deal with an adult learner. Because remember, some of the minimum requirements to get into a postgraduate study is that you have an adult learner that's of a certain age who is employed at that point in time with either 1 year or 2 years minimum working experience, which is one of our requirements. Because when they conduct the study or do the research, it is in the industry that they are working or the company that they are working with, right? Um, so that is why we look at a more andragogical approach. And I was told, so we went for a workshop on writing. So for a promotion process at the University of Johannesburg, you need to have what is called a teaching portfolio. And you have to have your portfolio set up in a certain way uh, and written in a certain way so that it portrays what you are doing as both a researcher and academic, what you're doing in terms of community engagement, leadership, etc. Right? All the criteria that you need to fill in. So we went to this writing workshop on how to do the portfolio, and then I brought up this thing about the pedagogy versus the andragogy. And I was told that as much as we assume, and like I said, we learn about things every day, and this was also a learning experience for me, in that we assume that andragogy is for mature adult learners. But then you also have to look at those learners coming in. They may have 20 years of experience in industry. They may be elderly in age, maybe they're 50s, 60s, and so on. And we do have students like that come into the system that want to complete their qualifications. But does it mean now that they have the maturity to handle research? No, we don't look at it as they may have practical experience, but the research aspect they don't have. They don't have that background. So you can't teach them because they're an adult learner, doesn't mean that you teach them at an adult level. You then have to bring it down to basics and teach them from scratch. And then it becomes goes back to the pedagogical approaches, which is what we use for our first, second, and third year students. Also, sometimes our fourth year students, which is the honors students. So it's taken for granted that we assume that at a fourth year level or fifth year level, master's level, that the students have the knowledge because they are mature. No, it does not necessarily mean that. So that is why we draw that distinction between the type of learning and how we actually teach and guide our students at the various levels, because we have to take into consideration not everyone is doing straight out of matric, coming to study year after year, continues with their studies. Then you have the learner that takes a break for 20 years, goes into industry, has the practical experience, comes back, wants to complete their degree. You got to look at the level at which we are teaching them. So also their writing and reading and the type of understanding that they have is going to be a lot more different than someone that's been in a university setting for a very long time. So we have to take that into consideration. These learners, older learners that are coming in from industry or to complete their degrees and haven't had that much university experience. So both authors recognize the gatekeeping role of a research proposal and how to actually write it up, and adding the importance of considering it to be a formative document in which postgraduate students are trying out a new discourse, especially when you're writing for the first time. So we go straight into the first activity, which is a simple activity. Write a paragraph in which you reflect on what it means that the proposal acts as both a gatekeeper and a pedagogical tool. What does gatekeeping mean?
It means you're trying. Sorry.
Yes, you can, and it's something we came across before.
Sorry.
No, continue.
It's trying to keep somebody out. I found that a lot in the academics, between academics, especially when I started research writing. Yeah. Nobody was sort of wanted to help you, and it was like a way to keep you out of academics. So, yeah, like people deciding who's going to go through and who's not going to go through.
Yeah, it's like controlling, trying to be a bit more controlling, right? Trying to keep everything to themselves. I came into a system as well, which was similar in that there was a lot of gatekeeping and that I had to learn a lot of things on my own because, firstly, we didn't have now the junior staff that comes in, because I came in as a lecturer, right? So the staff that come in as lecturers now go for this new staff orientation, etc. If you're in an HOD's position, you go for HOD orientation. I came into a system, I had nothing. There was nothing at UJ that had this. Only now they're doing, I think maybe they looked at the downfall and so, okay, these, new staff and everything needed to be oriented and stuff, inducted. Even different positions, you need an induction. It wasn't done that way. Also, the modules that I was told to teach, so I didn't have that induction. The modules that I was given to teach, now you would think as a university system, you have a module handover. It's the property of that university. The content that you build is for that university, from the learner guides to the notes, etc., etc. Right? That lecturer that actually left, that resigned, took all the material with them. And at that time, we didn't have the SharePoint or the OneDrive where we had to put all our information, so that the handover will be easier on a departmental level because we just give them an entire file, the SharePoint file or the file on OneDrive, whatever the case is, right? I didn't have that. I had to do everything from scratch. So this is why I'm saying it's like he took control. He stopped me. He was leaving the institution, right? But he stopped me from progressing because I came in to his position. And I saw it as a way of gatekeeping because I could not now, teaching the subject for the first time, I had no material. I had nothing to fall back on. So it's developing everything from scratch. That's what I had to do. But I learned from it, so that the next person that I passed it on to, that's at that time we were filing everything manually, printing and filing. Like I said, now it's easier with the SharePoint. And I had files. And when a new person came in, it was just take the entire file here. Everything is given to you, handed over to you. That was it. So, yeah, it's controlling too much and keeping things so that the next person does not progress. So, here we're looking at, are we doing that? Do we control how they write? Because, like I said, I gave you an example of a supervisor who tried to guide it because it moved towards his research focus and not the student's research focus, and then the student wanted to go in a different direction. Or are we looking at going right down to the basics using pedagogical tools and reteaching the students everything that they need to know when it comes to proposal writing? So you've got to look now, reflect in a paragraph, activity 4.1, what it's like to be a gatekeeper using the pedagogical tools, and draw a distinction between the two. What it means to be a gatekeeper. Proposal writing as identity work. We spoke about your unique identity and putting your voice into that proposal, because remember, when you are writing for research, okay, as we mentioned previously, so when you are writing a research proposal or any phase of your research, your voice, we keep coming back to your voice. That is your voice, your identity that comes out as a researcher or as a writer, right? And then obviously supported by what other authors have said. So the key things to address, the key questions to ask yourself when putting your own identity into your work is, what do supervisors and students find more challenging about writing the proposal? How can supervisors support postgraduate students conceptualizing their project and drafting the proposal? And how can supervisors support students in crafting the proposal? So if you have been in the situation of being a supervisor, current supervisor, new supervisor, an existing supervisor with a bit more experience than the rest of us, how do you start this research journey with the proposal? And what do you think is the most challenging part of, or what your students experience as the most challenging part of proposal writing? Anyone? I'm not seeing any hands up. Anyone wants to share their story? How do you guide your students when you're starting off this entire process? Okay, so before we have the proposal writing, you obviously need to have a topic, a research area. You must have identified a problem. Yes, Yurika?
What we do is, okay, we've got the proposal of intent. And for that, we have a specific little template. Sort of asking all the main things. What are you researching? Why are you researching this? What do you want to find out? Basically like that. And then from there, when we then decide, okay, this person is going to be fine, and then he gets what we call a mentor before getting a supervisor. And then the mentor helps with the proposal development. And with the proposal development, we've got a basic course, which we offer online once a week. And we start with something as basic, well, as somebody said before, the question. What is your research question? How do you develop? So we take them through it step by step. Because we found in the end, although they are all from different subject areas, but in the end, if you take them through step by step, you don't have to sing the same story to everybody.
Yes, yes.
And we also give them a chance to then present, like, first of all, just to present the theoretical framework. And then we all have an input, we chat about it, and we make suggestions and so on. So it becomes like a little bit of a support system.
Yes.
And for the actual proposal, we build on the template we gave them for the proposal of intent. And that has really helped me.
Yeah, We have
Makes it
something
easy for me
similar.
to understand.
No, most definitely. Okay, a lot, like we said, we have a lot of standard templates at UJ. And like I said, I speak from a UJ perspective. If you're not part of UJ, you can give me your university perspective. We have specific templates. One is like what you guys saying is we have a standard template for the proposal. We take them through that proposal intent because it's what you intend to do. You telling me this is the topic, this is the so because we go as far as helping them brainstorm topics or even giving them topics for those that are completely lost. And we say work with it. We don't give them the industry and stuff that we give them the research area or the topics. You go with it, you go and look at what industry you can conduct it in, or if it is relevant to the industry that you're working well and good, we start from there. Baseline, we have a template for a proposal. There's a template for an honors level, there's a template for masters, and there's a template for the doctoral level. Because like we said, it's different phases of doing research and we have different templates. So obviously the one at the honors level is going to be very generic, and then it's taught to the students on the various techniques that they need to use drafting the proposal. Starting with, and we're going to go on to this in the next section, from your introduction problem statement going right up to your brief literature, the briefing of the methodology that you're going to use and so on. So it's broken down in detail and we show them how to write up at every stage. Obviously, we show them how to read first, gather the information, and then start planning, organizing, and then doing their write up. So this is what we look at when it comes to researching at the novel stage, right? And putting in your identity and you um, as a supervisor, how are you going to guide your students, okay? Without actually being um, a gatekeeper yourself. Remember, you want your students to progress. As much as, yes, we would like to tweak the research so it's in line with our research focus as well. But remember, bear in mind that your students have their own research focus and they also generating and developing their own research path. So don't try and enforce too much of your research path onto them. Okay. We did have two picnics that we were reading on, okay, about scholarly identity, if you can remember that. So this is putting your voice as a writer into your work, right? So we are looking at page 55, Serena's story. Serena is a midwife with extensive local experience as head of the busiest labor ward in Malawi. There's an average of 12,000 deliveries a year. She spent more than a year working on her proposal and was then advised by her supervisor that she would not be allowed to continue with her master's, but would be awarded a postgraduate diploma instead. Her supervisors believed that a number of problems put her at risk of not completing the dissertation. In the discussion by Paxton, it seemed that they regarded her writing as chief obstacle. They were concerned that her writing was full of grammatical errors and that there was extensive plagiarism in her literature review. Second obstacle was that there may be no scientific milieu, no scientific supervision in the hospital in Malawi where Serena would have collected her data. This could well be a problem in the work context of many of the students who enroll for this master's course. However, it is not precisely these non-scientific milieus that we in academia need to learn from. For instance, how does one reduce childbirth-related mortality rates in labor wards with very large patient loads and limited resources? Surely students who have first-hand experience of these contexts have an important contribution to make to the medical knowledge. Similarly, could the medical principles that are taught in a university lecture and textbook not do the reforming and updating based on what we can learn from these students and their working environments? Because remember, sometimes you may have, it's much like what I mentioned about the different approaches of mature learning and maturity levels, and students that have come from a background of 20 years of experience in industry have the practical knowledge, don't have a proper degree, but does that mean that they can't conduct research or they don't have that experience and knowledge? they actually can add a wealth of knowledge because they are hands-on, much like this this midwife who would know a lot more about childbirth because she's doing the deliveries on a daily basis. So no amount of reading can compensate for the actual experience that she can add, the information that she can add based on her experiences. Serena expressed her disappointment and unhappiness to her supervisors and the course convener, pointing out that she already had a postgraduate diploma. She argued that she had an interesting and useful study investigating the use of partographs, a chart that monitors the progress of women in labor and alerts medical staff to possible problems, which is information you don't get from journals. So again, it's something that is hands-on, that she can add something new to the body of knowledge that already exists by just her experience and hands-on knowledge. This tool is used appropriately, has the potential to improve the quality of maternity services and reduce maternal and infant mortality. Serena also explained how much work she had already put into revising and rewriting her proposal. She and I had corresponded extensively, I being Paxton, via 34 emails as she worked on various drafts of her proposal, and she had made considerable improvements. Ultimately, Serena was allowed to re-register for the master's degree with the help of a course convener. She redesigned a study to make it more manageable and achievable. So basically what happened here is, because of maybe the style of writing, and here again we look at the language barrier, and we were talking about being multilinguistic and translanguages and the like. Maybe her English was not very strong, or English was not, she remember she's from Malawi, maybe her English was not her first language. She had the concepts, she had a good idea, she had a good baseline. She just needed more guidance, and that is where course convener was brought in, helped her redesign her study. So instead of lowering qualification to postgrad, they continued with the master's study. She had everything there. It was just how she was going to write it. So the issue was writing it. She had good information, a solid investigation, just a matter of how to go about writing it in a proper way or in a scientific way, which was conducive for a research study. Questions to consider from Serena's story. According to Paxton, what role did the aspects of academic literacy play in the decision to deny Serena entry to the research component of the master's degree? And like we said, it meant she had an issue with reading, she had an issue with writing. Not that she couldn't read or write, but academically and on a research basis, she struggled and needed more guidance. Based on your reading of the section on plagiarism and your own supervision and other teaching experiences, suggest why Paxton places plagiarism between inverted commas and what Serena may find difficult about writing a literature review. So maybe she didn't have proper guidance, and this is where we say plagiarism was unintentional. She just continued to write without knowing what probably not knowing what plagiarism was. Again, how you are guided on writing. So one of the things, before we move on, one of the things that we guide our students on, and I think I mentioned this in 2 lectures before, the Academic Writing Center. So the Academic Writing Center helps students, and it's resources that are readily available by your respective universities. It's just that the students know about it, they don't make use of it. And it's very helpful and very useful because it also helps you construct sentences, helps you to write. So that is why the writing centers are there. Even to not only write your dissertations and do research, they help students with assignments, especially students that struggle with English as a first language, which is not their first language. So these are the mechanisms that's put into place to help these students. So maybe she didn't know about the plagiarism, she wasn't guided on it, and she did it unintentionally. From your disciplinary perspective, how would you answer the questions that Paxton poses in the second paragraph of Serena's story? And this was, why would they going to downgrade knowing that she had obstacles, right? She had this first-hand experience. It's just that she didn't have the scientific approach. which needed to be guided by a supervisor, and that's why they brought in a course convener. From the third paragraph, what impression do you have of Serena and of the supervision process she had experienced up until this point in her story? So, before we go on to the next story, let's unpack that quickly. Serena's story, any comments? Anything you want to comment on or add on the questions that were asked? Because they could have disadvantaged her. I mean, it was a good study. She had hands-on experience as a midwife, doing deliveries, and some of the procedures that were used could improve maternity process, birthing process, delivery of these babies, anyone. And she could have contributed quite a bit to the medical field.
I think this is a supervisor problem.
Sorry, say that again?
I think it's a supervisor issue. The supervisor here,
yes,
obviously had no insight into the student's abilities, but it sounds like the student really knew what she was doing. It was just that she had a problem with the actual writing. You're a good supervisor, yes. You do it step by step with that student.
Most definitely, most definitely. Even when I read it initially, it was, she had really, really good solid foundation to conduct her issue. And a lot of students coming from these backgrounds, coming from, I'm talking about backgrounds where English is not their first language, you know, writing is a problem, especially when you have to write in a scientific, technical manner, that style, that research style. Not everyone is used to it, but the ideas are there, the concepts are there, which make for a brilliant study, just that the guidance wasn't there. Tony?
Prof, I just have a bit of a question or comment. With this case, it's understandable because the student has the experience, the practical know-how, and I think the ability to communicate at an academic level is really now the wall that becomes an obstacle for the student, that the lecturer or the supervisor actually has to do something about it. But it's really unfortunate, but that's the only way that the academic community will understand these ideas best. So it just shows the importance of academic literacies too, beyond the abilities, but to standardize the communication of some of these great innovations, and even brought by experience. So I do also say that communicate that there is an importance in these skills for everyone to understand truly what is being done.
Definitely. That is why you need to upskill these students, because like I said, she may be working, but she doesn't have that background in doing research, in writing in a specific manner, reading in a up until this point, I didn't really think there was a specific way of reading it. Not up until this point. It took me a while to learn that there's a certain way to read, as opposed to what I'm like, you just look at a document and you read the sentences. That was it, basic for me. But no, you had to read, to interpret, to comprehend, to evaluate, and sift out that information, which kind of was a different angle as opposed to us just reading something and understanding what it is. But here you were sifting out the information so that you could now take that information and relay it into your own words, into your own argument. It was a lot to absorb as a researcher. So, yeah, I had to learn a lot as well. That there's a particular way of reading, there's a particular way of writing. Tony, your hand is still up. Can I continue? Thank you. Moving on, there's a second story, a second example. So this is in Edrina's story, also written by Paxton. It is a much longer one, and thus only sections of it are reproduced here, right? Edrina holds a senior position in a Zambian health service, in Zambian health services. For her research project, she wished to conduct an investigation into how mothers perceive the quality of care in Lusaka's health facilities following a perinatal death. In her role in the Zambian Health Services, so she experienced the problem and she decided now this is something that was worth conducting an investigation or study on, right? In her role in the Zambian Health Services, she is an experienced writer, but when her writing moves from a professional to an academic content, very different values are attributed. The first draft of her proposal elicited extensive comments from her supervisor on what is expected in a research proposal in health sciences and emphasized the importance of the impersonal academic voice and scientific tone. An early draft of her research proposal read rather like a narrative of her personal experiences and findings over 2 decades of working in the Zambian health services. So basically, she just put in her own approach, her own words, her own experiences, but not in a structured template or format, following a research proposal, which is what we generally do. However, her strong personal voice, well respected in the context in which she usually works and writes, failed to produce uptake in the context of an academic institution, as is illustrated by her comments from the supervisor in response to the following excerpt in Adrina's draft. This was his comment. In obstetrics care, the purpose is to deliver a healthy and happy baby, and efforts are directed towards the safety of the mother and infant. Pregnancy loss is an apparent failure in the system. It seems that this intense loss tends to make everyone uncomfortable. Emphasis and added on that, right? The supervisor then responded to the 2 phrases in italics, which is the health and happy baby and then pregnancy loss, in the paragraph above. In response to the phrase being a happy baby, healthy happy baby, the supervisor commented, be cautious of using emotive phrasing in an academic writing. In relation to pregnancy loss, she suggested Adrina should use a more scientific term when writing a research proposal. Okay, so using the term healthy and happy meant that she was putting emotions into the academic writing, and this is where we say it needs to be a bit more scientific and technical. Also, the term of pregnancy loss, there's a more scientific term that can be used as opposed to the original word that she used, which was pregnancy loss. Remember, she's writing from the heart. She's writing from experience. So she didn't put it in any specific scientific or technical manner. She just wrote. Thaxton describes Adrina's ongoing struggles to exclude the emotive or emotions from her writing and how she responded to the following in Adrina's draft proposal. From personal experience of losing a full-term baby a few hours after delivery at a district hospital in Zambia, reading this passage, Paxton realized that Adrina had chosen this particular topic for her research project for very personal reasons because she herself had experienced a pregnancy loss. I therefore suggested she write about why she had chosen the research project in the form of a 2 or 3 page personal narrative, uninhibited by the constraints of academic genre. She then wrote what her supervisor described as a deeply moving and powerful testimony about the way she was treated after losing her baby during childbirth. So this became a bit more personal in research in that she wanted to conduct the study from her personal experience because we draw on a lot of our personal experiences so that we hope to make it, pass on the message, so to make it relatable because others are experiencing the same thing, it's just that we don't speak out about it. So I think she wanted to conduct this investigation because of what she had to go through in the healthcare facility in Zambia when she lost her baby. Thaxton comments on Adrina's narratives as follows. In this personal narrative, Adrina projects a strong and authoritative writer's voice. Very emotional story of her own experience seems crucial to the reader, developing a better understanding of the need for care for mothers because she's experienced it herself. The story also provides insight into social cultural practices associated with neonatal deaths in Zambia. Thus, the experience can be seen as a source of knowledge making. Yet traditionally, the scientific disciplines have allowed little space for expression of personal experiences. And we were always told that when we were writing, and we spoke about this before as well, your own voice, as much as you want to put in your own voice, but you had to keep it scientific, not realizing that certain issues or certain aspects, especially if it comes to sciences and so on, depending on the discipline that it is, you can't touch on your own personal experiences because it's a problem that was experienced and should be investigated. And it stemmed from her having that experience. Obviously, there's other mothers in Zambia that are experiencing the same predicament and how to deal with that loss and how they were treated at these healthcare facilities. I had indicated, meaning Paxton had indicated, that Adrena should write this narrative as a self-reflective writing exercise for herself, but she decided to include it in the next draft of her proposal, and the supervisor felt that while it was not appropriate for her research proposal, it should be saved and included somewhere in her dissertation. Take-backs, questions for consideration related to Adrena's story. What do these extracts from Adrena's story suggest to you about the roles of different kinds of writing in the preparation of research proposal and report or dissertation or thesis? What do you understand Paxton to mean when she writes that experience can be seen as the source of knowledge making? What is your response to this idea? Open the floor and yes, Masijuka.
Prof, just a question. To what extent, where is the balance in academia in terms of writing something in a, comment and say that it's emotive or having it to be written in a scientific manner as opposed to, well, or in relation to the target audience of the text that is being written or the people that would, benefit more from the text? Like, I'm struggling to kind of grasp the need to write scientifically in an academic way with such a study as opposed to
with such personal experience put into it. Is that what you're saying? Mr. Chuka? I can't hear you. Is it me or everyone? Can you hear Mr.
I think
Chuka?
she's been disconnected. She stopped talking halfway, Prof.
Yeah, it like just cut off. I've got the earphones on, so I don't know whether it was the earphones of mine or so Masatuka, from what I can gather, right? Also with me reading this, I don't know to what extent we can combine or link the academic scientific writing with the personal experience. Yes, we can put it in there. And I come from an engineering background, right? So obviously with us, we'll deal with processes and stuff like that. And we don't really put in personal experiences. What we do put in is a problem we've identified. And if I can link it to this story, it means that she identified a problem because she experienced it herself. Much like with process engineering, there was a problem with the process. We've identified a problem because I'm a process engineer, I'm on the production line, I've experienced this problem, right? Two are not really related. I'm just giving you an example, right? So one is more of personal in nature. She can, however, put in the emotions in that when she's doing the research gap and writing up about it, but obviously you write in the form of third person. You can't say, I experienced this and that is the reason for the study, right? There's ways of going about it. I don't have a definitive answer, like I said, because I'm not coming from a health science background. I'm coming from an engineering background, right? But somebody that comes from health sciences or a science background would have a better indication of how to handle that. I think it's just basically what your faculty or universities' standpoint or policies are on, because some things are, even when it goes to ethics, it's the sensitivity of the information that you put, and it's very sensitive in nature. Yes, she wants to tell her story, but is this the way you should actually be telling your story in the form of a dissertation? I don't know where we stand on that. So like I said, I don't have a definitive answer I hope that helps you. But I think you got to look at what your faculty standpoint on that is, the type of writing that you use in your various discipline. Tony?
Thanks, Prof. I think I wanted to comment on something similar to the question before, on something that we've read about now on the discourses, the various discourses, and
Yeah.
how, you know, these traditional models and traditional models that we use in like higher learning institutions may be a bit old. You know, yes, they require skills of, a scientific model, a critical kind of way of speaking. But what we're looking at now in terms of the kind of present and futuristic models, something much more open, even though it may be not speaking directly from a first person standpoint or whatever, but there seems to be more of an acceptance of newer ways of speaking about the same kind of scientific research. And I don't know. I find myself still very stuck to the traditional models because I'm also scared of what this new territory may be. So I don't know how I feel about all of this.
Yeah, like I said, even reading it, because it's so personal in nature, and remember, we've got to get ethical clearance as well, right? So if you're looking at the ethical consideration of the study, Masituka as well, and the rest of you. So yes, you want to add the emotive, you want to show your experience, but then also the investigation that you want to conduct is going to include, and remember, this is sensitive information, it's going to include those mothers that have experienced pregnancy loss. Do they really want to tell their story? So when she's going to conduct this study, are they going to be willing? You've got to get ethical clearance to get that sensitive information out from them. What if they're not willing to partake in the study? What if she doesn't get enough people to actually generate conclusive results for the study? Yes, you want to get your message across, but those are the kind of ethical considerations you have to think about. You want to tell your story, but not everyone wants to talk about their personal experience. I mean, child loss is something you don't want to tell the entire world about. It's something for you to deal with personally, you, your spouse, your family, whatever the case is. These are sensitive matters. So that's the kind of things we've got to start thinking about. And like I said, when it comes to ethical clearance, are we invading the space of those mothers wanting to tell their stories? Maybe they don't want to. Are you imposing it on them? Those are the kind of things you have to look at as well, aside from being scientific and writing the emotive way and personal experiences and so on. So I hope that kind of helps. Masituka?
It does, Prof. Thank you.
Okay. But I think from an academic standpoint, as a researcher, we have to take that to the various disciplines, those supervisors in that space. Like I said, as an engineer, I wouldn't, but personally, as a female, it's not information I want to put out there. So she may want to, but does it warrant a good investigation? All right, because it says when she writes that experience can be seen as a source of knowledge making. So yes, she wants to share her experience, but how receptive are people to listening and also sharing their experiences of similar similar things that happened to them? Which takes us to activity 4.2. Section of the unit that you have completed is titled Proposal Writing as an Identity Work. After reading parts of the story of Serena and Adrina and their supervisors, as well as writing advisors, course convener, write a paragraph in which you reflect on any one of the questions provided in the response to each vignette, which is vignette 1 and 2, which is on Serena and Adrina. Write your own reflection. Okay, that is why we discussed it, because taking back the reflections of what you read, you must now Write a paragraph on what you think. Those questions that were asked, write what your reflection is on the whole scenario with Serena's story, she being a midwife and so on, but she didn't know how to write. She had the proper information, just know how. Adrena, on the other hand, knows how to write and stuff like that. But we're looking at the emotive and the personal nature of that study. Up until that point, any questions? Not seeing any hands up, thumbs down. Can we move on? Okay, I'm going to move on to 4.3 and then I'm going to stop at 4.3 because my throat is getting a bit sore from speaking so much. So we'll stop at 4.3 and then you will have the assignment 3 to sit and work on for the remainder of the day. And then we can move on to, I think Thursday we have a session. So Thursday we will continue and try to finish off as much as we can. All right. So the next section that we're looking at is getting started, the role of academic literacies in choosing and refining a topic. So quickly, let's unpack, to read everything that's here. So basically what we're looking at is how do students, postgraduate students, choose their topic? And remember, the topic that they start off with at their proposal gets redefined as you go along the research journey. And before you submit for exams, you have a topic that has already been refined, finalized, may have changed a bit from the one that you initially produced. Any comments on that? You all know what I'm talking about, right? So student comes to you with a specific topic in mind or title in mind, and then as they progress with the journeys of writing, and they come to maybe their results and stuff, and then it starts getting refined. They improve, amend the topic. That's what we're discussing. Topic doesn't change completely because then you have to change the actual work that you are doing. All right. So how do you assist your students in choosing that topic and as you go along refining that topic? Anyone? No one? You good? Okay, so as a faculty of engineering, our processes are so the study field with a proposal goes to faculty higher degrees to get approval, right? Approval of the study. That's when the student is registered. Then from the proposal stage, we then develop the proposal into what is called your chapter 1, and then we move on to chapter 2, take them through the stages. Approval of title is only done when the entire dissertation has been finished and you need to, just before you submit for exams, like you do the nomination of assessors and so on, choose the examiners, then only we do the approval of title, because along the way the title would have been refined, improved, made better, because as you do the study you see that you want to make your topic or your title look a bit better, more appealing, more directly, that one that is directly related to your study. Many university websites include guidelines for writing research proposals, but these tend to focus on generic proposals and genres. The sections to be included, the preferred reference style, and so on, are generally given to you, as this is what a provisional proposal should be. While you are reading it, think about whether there's a blog at the bottom, right? Your research proposal as a writing work. So how do you write your research proposal? So what we're going to go on to is I mixed up my notes a bit here. We're on page 60. The writing of a research proposal and how you take your students through those steps. So you're going to read up on the research proposal as a writing work and how you actually write up the proposal. So in this blog, it shows that the student or this person went through a PhD proposal, and proposal began by assuming that the research that they did was written in a specific writing, which was style, which was teaching English as a second language, right? And we always said that a lot of the students that come in, English is their second language. How do they actually write? But I want to actually take you through, which takes us to the next which is this: developing a research community or research group or profile, right? This was based on applied English language studies, right? The research course, which is compulsory for postgraduate students, has evolved over time. So applied English language studies was teaching the students how to write in English. And I think that this was a good bridging course before they actually came to the academic writing, because of the various backgrounds that the students were coming from, with the lack of knowledge that they had in research writing, and giving them the opportunity to actually learn these writing skills and how to write in English, applied English. So it taught the students, the structure of the course was broken down into four sections or 4 quarters. So the first term or first quarter would have been, what is research, how to formulate your questions, where are you going, what are you doing, how are you going to conduct the research, right? Student there goes on to the objective of that structure was formulating topics, looking at a research design, who were their assigned supervisor and what did they say about the topic? Because obviously the supervisor that they were given had to have experience or be a subject expert in order to supervise the student. Quarter 2 or term 2 meant choose your methods that you were going to use to conduct the study. Obviously looking at, and this takes us to Adrina's story, which was ethical clearance needed to be obtained because of the sensitive nature of the information that needed to be collected, as well as the human factor involved. Ethical clearance procedures need to be followed. Third term, third quarter, coding and managing of the data, transcribing of your data, depending on the data collection method that you're using. So for instance, if you are using qualitative data, it means that you are writing a narrative report. You're using a document review, interviews, observation, and so on. You need to transcript, right? You're not actually quantifying information and producing results or generating results in the form of charts and diagrams. However, data analysis based on quantitative techniques, then you need to obviously put some statistical measure to it. Quarter 4 was where they decided to have research writing workshops, how to write a research report, positioning oneself and one's voice into the entire research. Students transformed bits of the writing done throughout the year into a research report and dissertation. This is taking all the information and putting everything together to write the entire report. You can read up on the courses underpinned by 6 principles, which was the multi-level, including honors, masters, and PhD students, and at those different levels, how do they read and how do they write? Everyone learns from everyone else's project, like I said, working in groups and learning from each other. Cohort and individual supervision models are combined. So whether you have it in a big cohort group or you just have individual one-on-one supervision sessions with your supervisor. Students belong to a community of researchers, yes, because you are now producing work which adds you to the body of knowledge that already exists. Curriculum is organic in relation to the student's project. There is space for students to have some control over their own work and what is included in their work. The sixth one, students have the opportunity to present their own work, to prepare for the discipline of conference presentations with their imposed time limits. This is now taking your work, converting it into a publication so that you can present at either conferences or publish in journals and so on, right? Brief description of multidisciplinary writing circles. Writing circles, again, is much like having these cohorts or groups that you work in, where you are helping, called scholarship of learning, and where you are helping other students within the same discipline. Like all of you sitting here today are here for the same purpose, which is the academic literacies in supervision, who can help each other, much like how you guys are helping each other with your assignment, right? Then I want to bring you to, we spoke about choosing and refining the topic. This is where the topic will change or evolve over time. I don't want to say change, I'm going to say evolve, because you're making it better, right? What I wanted to bring was the elements of a proposal, right? We all know the generic structure of the elements of a proposal, which starts with the introduction, and then it tells you what the introduction is all about and what the reader needs to know about the introduction. Problem statement is identifying a gap or identifying a problem that exists. Literature review is doing a literature survey based on other authors having similar studies and building your own conceptual or theoretical framework. This is what you're teaching your students. A methodology and design, so the types of methods that you're going to use, data collection tools you're going to use in order to conduct and analyze the study. Your research strategy is an outline, detailed outline of your plan of action in conducting the study, right? The logistics around you conducting the study. Other optional areas would be all of the above is dependent on what your department and school requires. So each faculty, each department is different in that if it is medical, you won't really use this template. Those in Faculty of Sciences uses a different template. The concept is the same, but the way in which the proposals are structured may vary. Okay, up until this point, any questions? You good? All right, so I just want to check. So you have activity 3.1, activity 3.2, and then you have your assignment 3. And by Monday, you will have the dates that all of this will need to be submitted. If you have not already uploaded everything. And then I see you on Thursday. So Thursday, we will complete from 4.1 to Unit 5. And I think that about brings us to the end of it. And then we will discuss about your assessment. All good? We're making good time.
All good,
So
Prof.
All right,
All
so
good.
take the remainder of the 2 hours. Take the remainder of the 2 hours that you have and work in your groups like what you did last week and help each other with your assignments and your activities. All right?
Thank you, Prof.
Not a problem. Okay, so Tony, again, if you can take the reins on this one, if you need to set up teams and so on, you can add me to that. I'm available. But communication, just send me an email if you get stuck throughout the day. But work until 4.
Prof, last week I had a little bit of an issue. I don't have some of the emails. Some people are not in the original email. I did try send messages via Moodle, but I don't think it got
let's
to
do this
everyone.
now. Let's do this now. Everyone put your emails in the chat if you don't mind. We ask you permission to put your email addresses in the chat so that you guys can have a team session up until 4 just to guide you on your activities and your assignments. You can even go back to what was done last week if you missed out. So please, I'm going to leave this open for a while I'm waiting for, yeah, Tony, you can take screenshots. I see Yurika's put her email. Few minutes. Ismati, thank you.
Okay.
Victoria. You have Victoria's email. Victoria, your email. Masatuka, thank you.
He has my email. We were together last week.
Okay, perfect. So I think you've got everyone else's email. It's 5 of you, right? So we good?
Yes, Doc. Yes, Prof.
No problem. Perfect. Tony, you good?
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof. Just copying everything right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
It's been a
Prof.
great session, and we will catch up on Thursday.
Okay, Prof. Thank you so much.
Thank
No
you,
problem.
Prof. Bye.
In the interim, if you
Thank
need
you.
consultation and stuff like that, just contact me via email. Thanks, guys.